Have you ever wondered why the kindest, most giving people, the ones who are always there for everyone, often find themselves alone? Why is it that those who offer their hearts so freely, who listen without judgment, who give without expecting anything in return, are the ones who are overlooked, taken for granted, and left behind? We live in a world that claims to value kindness, yet time and time again, it is the ones who give the most who receive the least in return. Think about the people you know who are always there. The friend who checks in even when no one asks how they're doing, the coworker who helps without complaint, the person who always says yes even when they should say no. These are the people who make life easier for everyone else. Yet when they need support, they find themselves alone. Why does kindness often lead to isolation instead of appreciation? We are going to uncover the painful truth behind why nice people are left behind, why their goodness is mistaken for weakness, and why, despite their best efforts, they often walk through life feeling invisible. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness because the world operates on a transactional basis, where strength is commonly associated with dominance, assertiveness, and the ability to take rather than give. Nice people, however, do not function within this framework. They give without keeping score. They help without expecting a return, and they show compassion in situations where others might demand retribution. This quality, though admirable, is frequently perceived as a lack of backbone. Whether friendships or romantic connections, nice people are often overlooked in favor of those who exude confidence, mystery, or even a sense of danger. Society has conditioned people to equate excitement with value. A person who is consistently kind and giving does not always spark the same thrill as someone who is unpredictable or elusive. As a result, they are taken for granted. Their loyalty is assumed rather than appreciated. When someone is always available, always understanding, always the one who compromises first, others begin to see them not as a person of strength, but as someone who can be easily dismissed. In professional environments, the same issue arises. The employee who always helps others, who stays late without complaint, who absorbs the extra workload with a smile. This person is rarely recognized as a leader. Instead, they are seen as someone who will comply no matter what. Those who push back, who make demands, who insist on their own value, are the ones who are promoted and respected. The quiet worker, who holds everything together, is simply expected to keep doing so. Their kindness is misinterpreted as an inability to advocate for themselves. This misinterpretation of kindness as weakness leads to a cycle where nice people are repeatedly used and discarded. The more they give, the less they are valued. The more they accommodate, the less their presence is noticed. The people who realize the depth of their importance, but by then it is often too late. The damage has been done, the kindness depleted, and the person who once gave so freely has learned the painful lesson that not everyone appreciates sincerity. This does not mean that nice people are weak. On the contrary, their ability to remain kind in a world that constantly exploits kindness is proof of incredible strength. But because this strength does not manifest in the form of aggression, demands, or resistance, it is frequently overlooked. This strength in the eyes of society is often quiet. And in that quietness, many fail to recognize the spaces and the voices and the spaces of love. People are naturally drawn to what they cannot easily have. The excitement of the chase, the unpredictability of emotions, and the thrill of uncertainty often hold more appeal than stability and consistency. Society, through movies, books, and cultural norms, has romanticized the idea that love and relationships must be filled with passion, tension, and a sense of conquest. This creates a paradox where people claim to want kindness and reliability, but in reality are more often drawn to those who are distant, unavailable, or emotionally unpredictable. By their very nature, offer a sense of security. They are dependable, always there when needed, and willing to give without hesitation. They do not create unnecessary drama, nor do they engage in manipulative games to keep others interested. Their love and friendship are given freely without the need for mind games or emotional manipulation. While this should be seen as a rare and valuable trait, a person who is distant or hard to understand, mistaking this emotional roller coaster for deep love or passion. When someone is consistently nice, available, and willing to prioritize the happiness of others, they are sometimes perceived as too easy or too predictable. Without realizing it, people start to take them for granted, assuming that their kindness and presence are guaranteed. Unlike the excitement that comes from chasing someone elusive, there is no sense of urgency in appreciating a nice person. They do not create the fear of loss because they do not engage in behaviors that make others feel insecure. Ironically, this security makes them less desirable to those who thrive on the unpredictability of human connection. This dynamic also plays out. The friend who is always there, who listens without interrupting, who supports without asking for anything in return, can slowly fade into the background. Meanwhile, the friend who is more selective with their time, who is harder to reach, or who sets stricter boundaries, often becomes the one people gravitate towards. This is not because the latter is more caring or valuable, but because people instinctively assign more worth to things that require effort to attain. Kind people do not demand attention, they do not create drama, and they do not make others question their intentions. But because of this, they sometimes find themselves overlooked in a world that confuses predictability with passion and effort with value. Nice people have an innate tendency to give, whether it is their time, energy, love, or support, without expecting anything in return. They do this not because they seek validation, but because they genuinely care about the well-being of others. Their kindness is not transactional. It comes from a place of sincerity. However, the unfortunate reality is that when someone gives too much without boundaries, they often find themselves emotionally drained, exhausted, and ultimately alone. Giving is a beautiful act, but when it is one-sided, it becomes a burden. Nice people are often the ones who listen when no one else does, who stay up late comforting a friend in need, who put their own struggles aside to make others feel better. They are the ones who remember birthdays, who check in without being asked, to offer help before anyone realizes they need it. But while they provide endless support to others, they rarely receive the same level of care in return. Over time, this imbalance becomes exhausting. They pour so much into relationships, whether friendships, family, or romantic connections, that they slowly begin to feel depleted. Their emotional reservoir runs dry, and they are left wondering why no one is there to replenish it. People often assume that those who give endlessly do not need anything themselves. Nice people rarely complain, rarely demand attention, and rarely express their own pain. They have mastered the art of being strong for others, which leads people to believe they are always fine, but they are not. They have their own struggles, their own insecurities, and their own moments of loneliness. However, because they are so used to being the giver, they hesitate to ask for help. They fear being a burden, even though they have spent their entire lives carrying the burdens of others. This cycle of always giving and rarely receiving creates a deep sense of loneliness. When someone spends years prioritizing others without ever being prioritized themselves, they begin to withdraw. They grow tired of one-sided relationships, of always being the one to initiate, to care, to compromise. Slowly, they start to pull away, not out of bitterness, but out of sheer emotional exhaustion. The saddest part is that when nice people finally step back, many do not even notice. Those who benefited from their kindness assume they will always be there, failing to recognize the weight they have carried for so long, and by the time they do realize, it is often too late. The nice person, once so full of warmth and generosity, has already learned a painful lesson, that in a world where they give endlessly, they must also learn to protect themselves from being drained beyond repair. Nice people often struggle to demand respect because their nature prioritizes harmony over confrontation. They are the ones who diffuse tension, who apologize first, who choose understanding over conflict, even when they are the ones who have been wronged. This is not because they lack self-respect, but because they genuinely believe in kindness as a guiding principle. However, in a world where people tend to respect those who establish firm boundaries and assert themselves, this approach can lead to being overlooked, undervalued, or even mistreated. From a young age, many nice people are conditioned to believe that being accommodating and agreeable is the right way to interact with others. They are taught to avoid conflict, to be the bigger person, to always consider how others feel. While these are noble traits, they come with an unintended consequence. When someone consistently prioritizes others' comfort over their own, people start assuming that their needs are secondary. Over time, this can lead to a pattern where their voice is drowned out and their opinions are dismissed, not out of malice, but because they have unknowingly trained others to believe that they will always yield. In relationships, whether personal or professional, respect is often given to those who assert themselves. People who set firm boundaries, who are willing to say no, who demand fairness, These individuals naturally command attention. Meanwhile, nice people who hesitate to push back out of fear of causing discomfort often find themselves taken for granted. They may agree to things they do not truly want to do, accept behavior they find unfair, or continue giving even when they receive nothing in return. While they may believe they are keeping the peace, what they are actually doing is teaching others that their needs are negotiable. The struggle to demand respect is especially visible in professional settings. A kind and hardworking employee who never asks for a raise, never pushes back on unrealistic expectations, and never stands up for themselves is often seen as a reliable worker, but not necessarily a valued one. Their willingness to be agreeable becomes their defining trait rather than their skills or contributions. Meanwhile, those who advocate for themselves, even if they are less skilled or less dedicated, are more likely to be promoted, praised, or given leadership roles. The difference is not competence, it is perception. Society equates self-advocacy with strength, and kindness with compliance. Even in friendships and family dynamics, nice people often struggle to be heard. They are the ones who accommodate plans, who adjust their schedules, who rarely complain even when they are inconvenienced. Because they do not demand much, they receive less in return. Others assume that they will always be understanding, always flexible, always willing to adjust. And while this makes them well-liked, it does not necessarily earn them respect. People may appreciate their kindness, but appreciation is not the same as valuing someone as an equal. The irony is that nice people often have a deep well of strength. It takes immense emotional resilience to continue being kind in a world that does not always reward it. But because their strength is quiet, because it is expressed through patience, generosity, and forgiveness rather than dominance or assertiveness, it is easily overlooked. They are not seen as strong because they do not fit the traditional image of strength. Instead of raising their voices, they listen. Instead of demanding, they offer. Instead of fighting for attention, they give it freely. But in a society where those who shout the loudest are heard first, nice people often fade into the background. And as a result, they find themselves in a position where they are liked, appreciated, even loved, but not always respected. Nice people often have a depth that others struggle to understand. They are thoughtful, introspective, and emotionally aware, which allows them to connect with others on a profound level. However, this same depth can make it difficult for them to find people who truly understand them in return. Their minds are filled with intricate thoughts, their hearts carry emotions too vast to be easily expressed, and their souls crave connections that go beyond surface interactions. In a world that often values small talk over deep conversations and convenience over meaningful relationships, nice people frequently find themselves feeling alone, even when surrounded by others. They see the world differently. While many people focus on what is directly in front of them, Nice people notice the subtle details. The emotions left unspoken, the pain hidden behind a smile, the loneliness disguised as confidence. This heightened sense of awareness allows them to be exceptionally compassionate, but it also isolates them. Not everyone is capable of engaging in the same level of emotional depth, and this can lead to frustration and misunderstanding. When they try to share their thoughts, they are often met with indifference or discomfort from those who prefer to keep things simple. Because they crave genuine connections, nice people are not satisfied with shallow relationships. They are not interested in fleeting conversations, meaningless interactions, or friendships based on convenience. They want to truly know others and be known in return. But in a fast-paced world where people are often distracted, many do not have the patience or the willingness to engage in such deep connections. This leaves nice people feeling like outsiders, as if they are speaking a language that few understand. Their emotional depth also makes them more sensitive to rejection, neglect, or insincerity. When they care deeply. When they love fully. But when they are hurt, they feel it intensely. Many people are accustomed to relationships that are transactional, where effort is only given when something is expected in return. Nice people, however, give without keeping score. They invest themselves completely, which makes it all the more painful when that effort is not reciprocated. Over time, they learn that not everyone is capable of matching their level of emotional depth, and rather than settling for less, they often choose solitude. This self-imposed isolation is not because they dislike people, but because they struggle to find those who truly resonate with them. They may be surrounded by acquaintances, colleagues, or even friends, yet still feel a deep sense of loneliness. It is not the number of people in their lives that matters, but the quality of the connections they have. And when they struggle to find those who understand them on the level they desire, they retreat into themselves, seeking comfort in their own thoughts, rather than in relationships that feel empty or unfulfilling. Since you originally listed 5 key points, I'll introduce a 6th reason why nice people often end up alone. Nice people tend to prioritize others over themselves, often at the cost of their own needs and desires. Over time, this pattern leads to exhaustion, unfulfilled emotional needs, and a deep sense of loneliness. Because they put others first, nice people rarely take the time to evaluate what they truly want from relationships. They are so focused on making sure that everyone else is comfortable and happy that they neglect their own emotional fulfillment. This creates a dynamic where they are constantly giving but rarely receiving, which slowly drains them. While they may not voice their frustrations, they often feel unseen and unappreciated. They internalize these feelings, convincing themselves that as long as they are helping others, Their own happiness is secondary, but this approach is not sustainable. Eventually, they reach a breaking point where they realize that no matter how much they give, it is never enough to make people stay, appreciate them, or return the same level of care. Nice people often attract those who take advantage of their generosity. They do not set strict boundaries because they believe in the goodness of others and assume that if they treat people with kindness, they will be treated the same way in return. Unfortunately, not everyone operates with the same level of integrity. Some people see kindness as an opportunity to exploit rather than a virtue to respect. As a result, nice people frequently find themselves in one-sided relationships where they are expected to provide endless emotional support without receiving the same effort in return. This cycle of self-neglect and emotional depletion makes it difficult for nice people to maintain meaningful relationships. As they give more of themselves without reciprocation, they begin to withdraw, feeling unappreciated and disconnected. They struggle to express their own needs because they are not used to prioritizing themselves. When they finally do step back, they often find that many of the relationships they invested in were built on their willingness to give rather than a mutual connection. This realization can be painful, leading to further isolation. Another challenge nice people face is that they struggle with setting boundaries without feeling guilty. When they do attempt to put themselves first, they fear being seen as selfish or unkind. This guilt prevents them from making necessary changes, keeping them stuck in a cycle where they continue to give at their own expense. As they grow older and become more aware of how much they have sacrificed, they may begin to withdraw from relationships altogether, choosing solitude over the exhaustion of constantly giving without receiving. The world does not always reward kindness the way it should. But this does not mean they are weak. If you are someone who has felt overlooked despite your kindness, remember this: you are not alone. You deserve to be valued, respected, and appreciated for who you are, not just for what you give. Do not let the world make you believe that you need to change in order to be seen. Instead, set boundaries, protect your energy, and surround yourself with those who recognize your worth. Good luck and thank you. May you always have the courage to remain kind in a world that often forgets to return the favor. Protect your heart, value yourself, and never stop being the good that the world so desperately needs. Thank you.